Welcome. Welcome to the online worship service here at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm, and I'm delighted to return here as your guest speaker. I am glad you are joining us for worship. We value each other and gather. Because of that, we gather in the safest ways possible, trying to stay connected through these challenging times and looking forward to that day when we all can once again greet each other in person. Our liberal faith calls us to engage the world and our neighbor. The world needs our care, our talents, our passion, our commitment to justice and dignity of each being. And we need each other to make it through the journey. So let us begin by centering ourselves as your talented minister of music, pianist Misha Beresnev, plays the prelude. Our call to worship comes from Reverend Gretchen Haley's words titled, "And Yet You Persist." Though you have been warned and given plenty of explanations, reasons to do otherwise, you have persisted to claim a life of joy and justice, to carve out this time, this space, for the renewal of your own heart. Despite all the reasons, the resistance fighting for your attention, luring you towards fear, you persist to practice gratitude for this day, this life that has been given. This chance to begin again. And so, let us gather that we might offer one another courage, strength, healing, hope, and this promise to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, and prevail in a life that is far more than ourselves. Come, let us worship together. Please join us for our opening hymn, which is 316 in our gray hymnals. Here we have gathered. And our song leader today is Andy Pierce.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can, sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
We begin the service by lighting the chalice, the symbol of our liberal faith. As we light this chalice, I invite you to join me saying the words titled Steadied by Each Other. And these words come from Soul Matters resource. Pulled in many directions by the demands of our days, we light this chalice to remind us of the still point deep inside. Made unsteady by the winds of unpredictable path, we light this chalice to remember the shelter of each other, longing for lights that lead us back to our truest selves. We light this chalice to illuminate the faces of friends and sacred companions, recalling once again that we find our way through the willingness to take each other's hand. Today, I invite you to consider the theme of perseverance. It is not a word that is common among UUs. If you look up on the UUA website, Words for Worship, there's not a lot on this theme. I think it tells something about our theology or our theological roots in inheriting the theologies of progress, of perfection, of idealism. We have not focused much on the part that talks about endurance, of hardships, of suffering. Yet it is something that we all have experienced. Questions I offer for your reflection come from a poem called Blistering Hope. You will read the poem later in the service. It reflects on hard work that leaves blisters on our hands as the only gauge of progress. So how do we engage the work where the only sign of progress are blisters on our hands? Can you handle blisters? Where do you find hope and beauty in the work that is ongoing? As you consider your experience, I'll offer my reflections in two parts. I invite us all to ground ourselves in the covenant of this community. Please join me in reminding ourselves of the promise we give to each other. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. The story for all ages today comes from our religious education curriculum, Windows and Mirrors, and is adapted from Barb Pittman's work. And it's a story about May. May was bewildered and ashamed. The other hands in the classroom were smooth with nails cleanly cut. They all seemed so new, so unused, so beautiful. May always hid her hands. Winters were easier because of Grandma's handmade mittens. They were colorful and bold, decorated with baby ducks and then later purple and blue stripes. The mittens meant that May felt no shame walking to school, carrying books and lunch for herself and her sister. One day, as she was walking through the school hallway, with her hands shoved in her pockets as she always did, she saw a poster for an art class. It was going to be taught by her favorite teacher. Immediately, she signed her name on the poster, and all the way home, she thought about the kind of art projects that she might make. Her mom worked at night, and May was watching her sister during that time, and so Mom enjoyed a beautiful picture when she gets home from work. So when she got home, she sat her sister Kate at the kitchen table for a snack. She did many other household chores, and all this time she thought of the wonderful art projects that she could try. And in fact, she was so busy planning her projects that she forgot about her hands. She finished the dishes, mopped up the milk that Kate didn't make to Kate's mouth, and when Mom got up and was rushing the door for work, Mom kissed May on her head, told the girls she loved them so much, and left. When May woke up the next morning, she jumped out of bed, excited about the art class. As she braided Kate's hair, she saw her hands and suddenly realized that she could not paint or draw without other children seeing her hands. May ran to the school to cross her name off that poster, but it wasn't there. The poster and sign-up sheet were gone. When May went to the art class that day, she tried to get the teacher's attention to tell the teacher that she was no longer interested in the class. But there were so many other children in the class and so much noise that May decided she would wait until after the class to talk to her teacher. After the teacher got the class to quiet down, she said that the first lesson was to draw their own hand. May was stunned. She tried very best not to cry in front of others. There were so many things she wanted to draw, but her hand was not one of those things. Still, she did her best. even though she was ashamed to even look at the roughness around her nails. She had little bumps on her palms and lines on her hands that reminded her of her grandma's hands. May finished her drawing quickly and left even before the teacher had collected the works. The next morning, May was determined to tell the art teacher that she could not take the class anymore. When she got to art class, the teacher talked about all the wonderful hand drawings she had gathered from their desks. About the hand drawing that showed pink and purple dotted fingernails, about the hand that had diamond rings on every finger and 4 diamond rings on the thumb. But then she held up a hand drawing that was familiar to May. It showed a small hand with fingers curled toward the palm as if holding a precious stone or delicate butterfly. May shoved her hands under the desk and wanted to crawl under there to hide along with her hands. The teacher said, "Of all the hand drawings I saw yesterday, this is the one I could not stop looking at. This is an interesting drawing, a beautiful drawing, for it shows a hand that is not idle. It shows a hand that has worked hard. The fingers are curved as if to protect something fragile." She walked to May's desk and asked May to show her her hand. May didn't want to, but she was accustomed to obey her teachers, and so she showed her hand to her teacher. "Now," said the teacher, "as I hold in my own hand the hand from this drawing, I can see that I was not wrong. It is a hand that has caressed little kittens and held small daisies. It is a hand that has washed many dishes, folded laundry, given baths, and combed hair. Yes, this is a very interesting hand. It is a beautiful hand." With that, the teacher went back and started talking about the afternoon's drawing assignment. After class, May ran all the way home, dragging Kate, her sister, part of the way and carrying her for the rest of the way. She put the drawing on Mom's bed, and with her rough red hands, she washed the dishes, fixed dinner, bathed Kate, and finished her homework. As she lay down in bed, she noticed the glow from the moon was shining on her hands. They looked different tonight. May thought of the many dishes and counters she washed when Mom was sleeping. She thought of the times she had bathed her sister and cleaned up the house when Mom was at work. She thought about the way her palm fit over Kate's cheek and how wonderful skin felt to her hand. She remembered the tender kisses Mommy gave her hands when she came home from work. Just as the little girl with the red rough hands was starting to nod off, she looked one more time at her hands, and she smiled. For they really were most interesting hands. This last week, here at First Jefferson, we started our Stewardship Campaign. And as part of this campaign, you will hear from different people about why they give to this community and how they decide how much. This week, here with us is Paul Chapman. Paul is a vice president of the board and a member of the ad hoc name change committee. He and his wife Christine are longtime members of First Jefferson. Please, Paul, come on up.
Good morning. My topic today is stewardship. A church steward, by definition, is a person who takes care of the church, keeps it healthy, functioning smoothly, we hope, and helps it to grow. In our Unitarian Universalist congregation, everyone is a steward. Stewardship is our privilege and our responsibility. Christine and I have been members of First Jefferson, apart from a medically enforced hiatus, since 1991. We support First Jeff because we believe in the principles of Unitarian Universalism. We support First Jeff because we cherish the opportunity to be the architects of our own faith and to live out those principles and that faith in our daily lives. Also, you meet a nicer class of people here. In our house, we pledge a single check. It hurts sometimes, but this year it was made a lot easier by Donald Trump and his $600 a head giveaways. And since we cannot meet in person, we also give a little lagniappe. That's a New Orleans term for something extra. We send in a second check to cover what we would have thrown into the collection basket and spent on potlucks during the course of the year. Now, I know not everyone is in a situation where they can do that. But there is in the New Testament a line from Acts of the Apostles describing the early Christian community that pretty closely resembles the Unitarian Universalist concept of stewardship. From each, according to their abilities, to each, according to their needs. Besides financial stewardship, which can be very difficult these days, there is another kind of stewardship, another kind of investment you can make. Call it sweat equity. This is support that you give to sustain the church by what you can do. You can run for office. You can volunteer on committees. You can show up on church work days to mow the grass and paint the walls. You can do KP duty in the kitchen on those potluck Sundays. Whatever your talents are, whatever your skill set is, you can use it to advance the mission of the church, to keep the church strong, to grow the church, and to help things run smoothly. We all can pitch in a little. And oh yeah, we're still going to need the money. So do what you can. to be a steward of this church. Thank you.
So I will offer you the poem that I mentioned earlier in the service. The poem is called Blistering Hope, and it is written by Ken Sehested. A stonemason's meditation on perseverance. When cutting capstone, carefully measured from a larger block with nothing but hammer and chisel, you come to know the necessity of blister-raising toil to achieve envisioned result. No guarantees are to be had, of course. Sometimes, despite calculated efforts, despite calculated scoring, tracing a careful contour across one edge, round to another, and yet another, with metered strokes and measured aim, fingers are no match against the carom of sledge. The rock stubbornly declares its own gnarly cleft. Some fractures are costly. Some rocks just don't cooperate in the prestige of being mortared atop crafted columns. But even these, the jagged rubble hidden behind hewn face, have their anonymous reinforcing roles. Nothing, I say nothing, is finally lost. To my amazement, though most such cuts conform to the experience of the ancients who first discovered the cause and effect of arm-aching labor in fashioning ordered edges, such disciplined patience, it seems implausible that soft tissue of human hands could effect an accurate rending of molecules so dense the phrase hard as a rock was invented. And it is accomplished without traceable progress. The rock well disguises its stress. Dozens of strokes are no different from the first. And the splitting swing is an epiphany. In such work, memory is more important than manifest. The stone's sheer beauty is the only interim award, blisters the only gauge of progress. Nothing, I say, nothing is finally lost. How much less plausible the promises of other ancients that one day the serene meadow welcomes wolf and lamb together, the shamed no displacing joy, the fires of mercy forge amnesty from enmity. How long till the beloved's intention for creation coheres, prompting hope and history to align? The implausible has been promised, but not apart from covenant terms of disciplined patience, of sweaty, achy perseverance in pounding away, strike after metered strike, with pauses to relieve parched and breathless throat at apparently impenetrable prospects. Insurrection against the implausible is underway in countless but largely hidden places. One or more within your reach. Can you handle blisters and sometimes gnarly clefts? Nothing. I say nothing is finally lost. When was the last time you looked at your hands to see what story they tell? Why don't we take a moment and look at our hands? Notice the lines, the bumps, the scars, the skin. Our hands tell us of the labor they have engaged in. The skin gets rough after cleaning, cooking, gardening, fixing up car and home. Nails split and get broken. The skin toughens in places, splits or acquires rash. I had calluses on my fingertips when I played guitar, and I have experienced several blisters, mostly from garden work. Some have been very painful, and all of them were uncomfortable. Maybe your hands carry scars from touching a hot stove or a mishap with a kitchen knife. Maybe your hands are well manicured, or maybe not so well manicured, or have early spring dirt embedded underneath the nails. Maybe they have short, bitten nails and cat scratches and redness from washing too many dishes. Maybe they are hard and strong from construction work, agricultural work, or other menial labor done on a daily basis. Maybe your hands boast about your athletic ability. NBA players are known for having large hands. One of the players, Michael Jordan, he doesn't have the largest hand among the basketball players. He's just number 8 on the list, but his name is the one that was most familiar to me. His hand length from the palm to the tip of the middle finger is 9.75 inches. The average male-identified person's hand length is 7.4 inches. And his hand span from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the pinky finger with a hand outstretched, it is 11.3 inches when the average is 8.5 inches. Our hands bear witness to the work that goes through them. Our hands carry our pain and our health challenges. Arthritis, stroke, injuries, birth defects, even cancer risks are known to show through our hands. The scientists say that based on the index finger length, they can tell how much testosterone males have been exposed to in utero. And they can tell how a person treats their intimate partners. On many occasions, the signs of our experiences on our hands show up gradually. At first, the change could be barely noticeable, yet the more experiences we accumulate, the more our hands reveal. They testify to the struggle, the process, the work we have engaged in. They testify about what we carry inside us, what we care about, and who we care about, even when many of those experiences have not yet led to significant success or any notable results. We may have planted a tree and the cold storm came and the roots froze, or the hail damaged the crops sowed in your garden, and the only evidence of the work are that those blisters the planting work left on your hands. Or maybe the cookies that took us several hours to make burnt in the oven and left a burn mark on our hands too because we accidentally touched the oven with our bare hands when we rushed to save our cookies. Sometimes the success or the result does not come until much later. The struggle at work, the hardships in relationships, the long years of parenting, all these have asked us to spend days and nights persevering through hardships without knowing when we will see the final result, if we will succeed. This week marked a 1-year anniversary, or 1 year, not really anniversary, since the pandemic was declared. It has been a long year. Much has changed. A lot has been lost, and the end is not yet clearly in sight. All we have are the blisters to show we have been engaging this work of persevering through the changes. In the poem that you heard earlier, Ken Sehested points out that when the stonemason carves the stone, the blister-raising toil is just a part of the process. Sometimes, no matter how precise and planned the work is, the rock just does not cooperate. And then there are fractures that are costly and does not deliver the desired result. And yet, there are those times, and for the most part, our soft hands are able to effect the most beautiful cuts and edges. It doesn't happen without disciplined patience and sweaty, achy perseverance. And yet, in the midst of those blisters, hope emerges. So it is with our hands. Consider how many cups of coffee they have held, how many hymnals and tools and phones they have carried, and how many other hands they have held to support, to extend care and love, to connect and remind that you are not alone. We have each other, and together we affect beautiful things and meaningful experiences. We will pause here to hold one another in care and support. We pause to extend our love to one another, knowing that our daily lives bring us joys and also concerns, sometimes pain and sorrow. As we mark this 1 year of the pandemic, we hold in our hearts all of us affected by it, all who lost their loved ones, all whose lives have upended economically, all whose lives have experienced struggles in relationships, concerns for health. So let us take a moment to pray, meditate, or practice silence. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes or just let them rest. Breathe with me. Following the words of Lynn Cox, we pray. We give thanks for the ability to begin again. After the disaster, after the tragedy, after the loss, after meeting the challenge set before us, may we have the courage to continue on the journey. may we cultivate together the strength to welcome every kind of gift in all manner of ways to be on the journey together. And to this, we add the silent prayers of our hearts.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
I know this rose will open. We know this rose will open. How do we know that? Where do we find the strength to persevere and keep working when we do not see the result or the end in sight? And where do we see beauty in the midst of the ongoing work? The poem says that in such work, memory is more important than manifest sight. It says to look at where we have been, what we have done, and what we are still doing. This month is a Women's History Month. This last Monday on March 8th was the International Women's Day. We celebrate women this month and their accomplishments. As a part of that, we look back at the struggle and experiences of women, their fight for their rights to vote, to be recognized as equal, to be free from violence and abuse. The origins of March 8th, the International Women's Day, are socialist. Following massive demonstrations, united suffragists and socialist causes in Russia, the Tsar era ended, and a new government granted women the right to vote in 1917. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin declared Women's Day as an official holiday that same year. And until the 70s, it was celebrated only in socialist countries. While in Russia, that march in 1917, the demonstration led to women having an equal right to vote. Here in the United States, it took 72 years from the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, to the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 that allowed women to vote. Suffragists had marched as a group, been arrested for illegally voting and picketing outside the White House. They'd gone on hunger strikes and endured brutal beatings in prison, all in the name of the American woman's right to vote. Not all of them lived long enough to see the success, the result of their fight. Olympia Brown was one of the few original suffragists to see the results of her life's work. She voted in her first presidential election at the age of 85. Yet we know that this is not the whole story of women and voting in the United States. 4 years after the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Native Americans were recognized as citizens of the United States. However, many Native American women and men were still barred from voting for 4 decades after that, until in 1962, Utah, as the last state, fully extended voting rights to Native Americans. After a century of significant barriers and voter intimidation tactics, Black women and men's right to vote was finally signed into law in 1965. Rosa Parks, she stood in line for 12 hours to register to vote, pay head taxes, and undergo tests to prove that she can read and interpret Constitution. She tried 3 times until she was finally able to register to vote. So when December 1st of 1955 came, Rosa Parks was already tired of all the injustices she had witnessed, and she refused to give up her seat. She was not the first to do so, and it was not her intent to start a movement. Just a month later, after the bus boycott, she and her husband were forced out of their jobs and were unable to get hired anywhere else. They suffered economic hardships and continued to receive hate mail and phone calls well into 70s. Women are still working to secure equal rights, equal pay, to be able to live free from violence, from sexual harassment and abuse, to have access to health care services of their choice. Many of us have been part of this work. As we bring back into our memory where we have been on this work, we also recall times when we have felt discouraged about how slowly things are moving, or the way they go backwards, erasing all progress made. Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd, in her book, After the Good News, writes about the progress myth that many of us Unitarian Universalists carry. She says that we work towards making a difference, towards improving lives, and this ideal of progress as our goal and measurement of success is hindering us. It burns us out. It discourages us. Because the more we engage this work, the more injustices we see, the more needs we encounter, and we begin to feel that all this work has not made a difference. And all we have are the blisters on our hands. MacDonald Ladd argues that instead of building utopias, the justice work is about relationships, about the companionship in the midst of our efforts to work for change. Using hands as the metaphor, the blisters are the reminders that we are part of something larger. So whatever work we engage, it might be helpful once in a while to look back, to see the difference made, to remind one another to look for beauty in the moment, in the companionship along the way, in the experience of being part of something larger than us. So we lean in, we lean on each other as we face the challenges and difficulties in life and in our work for justice. I invite us to join in our closing hymn, which is Lean on Me.
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
We extinguish the flame of our chalice, knowing that its light lives inside us, connecting us to one another and helping us persevere on our journeys. We lean on each other to keep this light glowing and lighting up the world around us. And as we go forth, I offer words of Kathy Huff. Our time in this place may have ended, but our connection to each other in this community remains. Together, may we walk the path of justice, speak the words of love, live the selfless deed trod gently upon the earth, and fill the world with compassion. Until we meet again, blessed